Yeah, I know exactly. And I guess if I were to sort of recap that entire thing, the way I see it is, if you're going to push back, and that's what senior executives especially want you to do because they're surrounded by people that don't. So if you're going to push back, I think there's three reasons that you need to have. You need to have that sort of that bond of mutual respect in that relationship in place. That's one thing. Second, you need to have a valid point. By that I mean you need to have the argumentation, the facts, the figures to back up what you're saying or what you're claiming. And then the third one is you need to convince them that you're doing it in the best interest of them, their company, and in a sense that it's you against the problem, right?
Right, right. Now, it's I've used this a lot, but it continues to be one that I think I heard years ago when I was a young consultant, and I looked at one of the people I worked with, and I said, "Why are you so good at this? Clients call you back, they want to work with you," and he said, "Well, I learned long ago, the hard way, that you can't be a yes man, because why would a client need you? They got plenty of those internally. And you also can't go in acting as if you're the smartest person in the room because no one wants to feel put down or inferior in that regard." So he put it this way. He said, to be a good consultant, you have to say those things to your client that would get you fired, but you have to say them in a way that you don't get fired. And I translate that into sales. In order to be best, to win the most, that whole bit about educating with new ideas and collaborating, you have to say things that are different, that move them out of the comfort zone, that might make them a little bit uncomfortable because people don't buy unless they're uncomfortable with their current situation. But you have to say it in a way that they say, I want to work with you, because that's still an important part. That connecting, while it's not only the thing you do and it doesn't allow you to win, you can't even get to the point where you can collaborate unless you're connecting.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you're not going to get there.
Absolutely. So that's the price of entry. So, John, I know, and I read some early sort of pre-release reports and things. One of the things that you talk about are the three levels of range selling, right? So it's sort of range selling the model, but maybe I wouldn't call it version 2.0, but an advanced version based on the things that you've learned in this very, very recent research. So do you want to walk us through level one? And level one, I know, is all about relationship, but maybe you can summarize that for us.
Yeah, and I will do that, and I want to make sure that everybody understands. While we call them levels, they're not necessarily step one, step two,
Right.
step three.
Right.
That they don't always work sequentially, but you're thinking about them at all times. So level one is about connecting to the individual. How do you show that you understand them, you understand their needs, you listen to them, you are proactively aware of what's needed, so you connect with them personally. That's the baseline. And it's funny because some of the things you read that said, well, the relationship salesperson isn't going to make it anymore.
Mm.
Well, yes, I would agree with that if all they do is worry about relationships. And you see people who do that. They're really good at building relationships, but they don't know how to move the prospect to a point where they say, "Oh, I need something," or "I can see how you can bring some value to the table." But you still have to connect. So relationships are connecting with the individual. So that's level one. And the second part of that, though, is you need to see that I can connect the dots, that I recognize those needs and I can connect them and clarify them for you. Because a lot of times people have a need, they know they have to get to a certain point, but they don't have all the expertise that the seller might have because that's what the seller does all the time. So you have to connect on two levels. Connect with me personally as a buyer, and then connect my problem in a way that I go, this guy gets it. And that's an important point because now I'm willing to continue a conversation. But as we say in our research, that's sort of just the price of entry. I'm now willing to talk to you more, but I'm not necessarily willing to buy. I may like you, but and I may get it that you're a smart person, but you have to connect the value for me.
Right, and I love the way you put that connective value because, in a sense, yes, there's much more information available to buyers than ever before. Yes, it's very easy to pull together a short list, but also because there's more and more information, there is more and more stuff that you have to make sense of as a buyer. And I've certainly been in situations where I had all the information in the world, and I just wanted to help, get someone to come in and help me make sense of it and help me make intelligent decisions about, moving forward and the best way to do that. And I think if you're selling high-end complex services or products or a mix of both, it's your responsibility in a sense, because you're always out there talking to your clients, your prospects, talking to other people in the industry, and you have a very broad visibility of the issues and the solutions and the successes that they are accomplishing. And I think it's your responsibility in a sense to come in and talk to your prospect and say, hey, you know what, have you considered doing this, or have you considered doing that? And thereby, I think, connecting those dots and creating that value. So let's move on to level two. And I take your point that it's not sequential. Let's face it, in a sales process, you can never just really stop managing the relationship. You can never really stop making sense of it all. But what's level two?
Well, level two is about convince, and it's a series of things called persuade, convince. It is, I have to understand that you could be the best choice for me. How are you different? Now, part of the way you are different is how you connect and you differentiate in the sales process. So if you handle the sales process better, if you lay out the buying process clearly for me, I understand what's going to happen. I understand what I'm going to get. But it's also this issue of have you shown that I will get maximum value for what you're providing? Now, it's interesting because on our online course, I just answered a question in one of our community forums, and the person said they had gone from a position like you, Ago, where you had been a buyer now, and now you're a seller, and they had always understood, internally what had to be done, but now they have to equate their services to dollars and cents, that they can talk about what they do, but they have no idea, well, why would somebody want to buy it? What is the value equation there? So you have to understand what is the impact, what is the value that I will get, and that's the convincing. And a lot of people don't go there. They come back to me in my coaching and they say, well, I'm stuck. I can't move this person to the next. They seemed interested. I connected well with them. I had a good conversation, but there was no urgency, and there's no urgency because there was no convincing, persuading that I will get some value from it. Now, once you get to that, now you have to do what we call substantiate, minimize the risk. Have you done it before? How can you guarantee that I'm going to get there? Who have you worked with in my industry? All these things lead to my believing that you are credible and professional. And that's all the things behind me. And it's partly how I present myself in a sales conversation with confidence, and I have things on the tip of my fingers and I know exactly what I'm going to do. But without those, I can't even get to a point where I'm allowed to be considered.
Right.
And you get people on that first level and they say it was a good conversation, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. Yes. And interestingly, I was having also a good conversation with a friend of mine who's a senior executive, and I mean she's pretty high up in a major top three pharma firm, and she controls a fairly sizable budget for external services. And I asked her, I said, you know what, we've known each other for a long time. Do you mind if I just ask you outright, what is it that you're looking for when you are considering a potential vendor? Before you sit down with them for that first meeting, before you open your door, what is it that you need to see, to get across that hurdle and to give them an hour or more of your time? And the answer came back like lightning fast. I didn't expect that. And she said, the number one thing that I need to see is the problem that I have and that we talked about. If they've solved it before, if they can do it again, and if they can get me the same kind of results that they got their other clients, that's all I need to see. And that's what I need to see. And so that goes back to your point about substantiation, which is so important. There's something else that I picked up on. You talked about value. Now, value is a word, we can talk about that all day long. But what kind of value, what elements of value, if you will, are buyers specifically looking for people that sell to them? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, and it depends on the buyer. And let me use an example to illustrate this. So we had a client who had sold a major project and they were involved in warehouse distribution reorganization. So they would take multiple warehouses and they would figure out where to put them and where to automate and what should be the staffing levels and so on and so forth. And in the process of doing that, they had saved this client millions of dollars. So clear value.
Right.
The value is in the outcome of cost savings and the reorganization. And that was great. So I can measure my value in cost savings, revenue increases, a number of things like that. But here's the important point about value. It is in the eyes of the beholder. So they had a prospect. In fact, the prospect came about because the company, their client, had bought another client, another warehouse distribution organization. And they got the lead, and the person came in and they said, I heard what you did for so-and-so. Let's talk. I want to talk about what you can do for me. And in the process, they did not connect. They didn't listen. And they presented the value as, we're going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they did not get the assignment. And we came on and we asked later on, we targeted, we went back to them, and because we were doing a lost deal analysis.
Right.
And we asked them, why didn't you choose them? He said, because those guys came in and were very arrogant. Aha. So they were pushing without doing the relationship piece. They convinced them of the wrong thing, because what they said is the value to me was not the saving the hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. The value to me was improving my customer service. We had an initiative from the company to improve customer service. So the value for them was not going to be the dollars. It was going to be customer service efficiency. It could be measured in how long it takes to fill an order, how long it takes to track an order, how well they can track an order, automated tracking of the orders. It could have been any number of things, and that would be the value. So when you look at the value that you provide for a potential prospect, that's why it's so important to do some of that solution sales approach, which is, let me find out what's going on so I can articulate the value in a way that it means for you, because it could be articulated in many, many different ways. And once you understand that, of course, then you can figure out the best way to do that. And it may be something they hadn't been even thinking about.